Hello, hello, hello. What is it? Monday? Wait, Tuesday. Super Tuesday. And one more day of 2025. Give them. Yeah, I did a show earlier. Or satisfaction. Thanks. Yep, you too. Tomorrow night, I was thinking, I guess the New York ball might be different. I think Ann was telling me about the ball that's going to drop. And I don't normally stay up late, but we could do the show at 5, go 5 to 7, and then come back at 10. Come back at 10 o'clock. Tomorrow. That's for tomorrow night. And do the last show of 2025 before the countdown. We'll stay up to midnight. Chico, I just fed you now. Stop. Uh-oh. Don't get Ariel all wound up now. Don't start. You hear him, okay? Whining like a baby. Daniel. What? So there's a major announcement on one of the Kennedy's family members passed away. We'll be doing that video first thing. So we'll check that out here in a minute here. I gotta open the window open for Chico. Come on. Oh. All right. You got the window open for Ariella? Okay. So they're both sniffing out the air. So there's somebody. Ooh. Check this out, you guys. Whoop. They're making Congress to remove Omar. Trish is
Congress offering. So
she's live.
Go to their website, balanceofnature.com. Use
that's Trisha live right now.
50% off right now. So I don't ever think they.
God dang it. Oh, Benny just came out with one. Oh. Oh, lucky I went on this afternoon. Benny just came on. We got Billy. Thanks, Kay. I don't know. I don't think I've seen it yet. Where is it? I got to reset my phone. Carol's late like usual. Kobe. Be nice to get everybody in for the last show tomorrow night of 2025. Pass it around to everybody. Say 10 o'clock countdown for tomorrow night. I got George on TikTok, a 3-parter, okay? All right. Hopefully Kimberly will be in, and Lori, and all the lurkers, Greg, Dave. All our new people. Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Bill. I thought we didn't play her at I guess we didn't play her. I thought we played her already. So yeah, everybody is talking about that Minnesota fraud all over the place. Well, I guess we'll have a lot of lurkers tonight. Okay, well, let's get going here. Chico's quiet. I just bet on something, laying on the couch.
From a battle with cancer. And I did want to share this with you. This is from Fox News saying that JFK's granddaughter, Tatiana Schlossberg, the middle child of Caroline Kennedy and Edwin Schlossberg, has died at age 35 earlier this year, she announced that she had some leukemia and a battle with that. Meanwhile, the family did share a statement that we wanted to read to you, saying, "Our beautiful Tatiana passed away this morning. She will always be in our hearts." George, Edwin, and Josephine, Morin, Ed, Caroline, Jack, Rose, and Rory. Meanwhile, I did want to share just a little bit more information with you as we continue to follow all of these developments right here. As Tatiana Schlossberg made that announcement disclosing that she had terminal cancer, writing that in an essay in the New Yorker, saying that one of her doctors said she might live for another year. So that was back just a short time ago, saying that she was diagnosed in May of 2024 at the age of 34. After the birth of her second child, her doctor noticed her white blood cell count was high, and it turned out to be leukemia with a rare mutation, mostly seen in older people. Her essay was published on the 62nd anniversary of her grandfather's assassination. Schlossberg, an environmental journalist, wrote that she had undergone rounds of chemotherapy and 2 stem cell transplants, the first using cells from her sister and the next from an unrelated donor. She says she also participated in clinical trials. During the last trial, she wrote, her doctor told her that he could keep her alive for perhaps a year. She also said that policies backed by RFK could hurt cancer patients like her, and Caroline Kennedy urged senators to reject his confirmation. Schlossberg also wrote about her fears that her daughter and son wouldn't remember her, saying that she felt cheated and sad that she wouldn't get to keep living, quote, the wonderful life she had with her husband. While her parents and siblings try to hide their pain from her, she wrote, she says she feels it every day. So we are continuing to follow this breaking news as JFK's granddaughter has died after a heartbreaking leukemia diagnosis. This is the New York Post that shares that breaking news. We are continuing to follow all of the reaction to this news, and we will, of course, bring that to you.
Okay, that was another sad story. We had 2 sad ones the last couple of days. We'll start off with Benny. Benny has another update on that Nick guy.
That started it all. The Quality Leering Center, leering your children how to leer this is. And suddenly are running this massive hedge fund, and Ilhan Omar now leering your children how to leer this is. The initial video that went viral from Nick Shirley exposing how Somalis use fake CARES in order to bill the taxpayers and steal all of our hard-earned money.
In Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong, and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers
it just came out, you guys.
No one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. If you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out.
So we know the drill now. There are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of these all across the country. And Somalis are just defrauding the American taxpayer because they hate America, they hate us, and they're just strip mining this country for while the getting's good until we're completely bankrupt because of their parasitic actions. Well, let's go ahead and check in on the Quality Leering Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Misspelled Minnesota daycare quality leering trucks in children after viral fraud video. Never seen kids go in there until today. So after they were exposed, the
Kennedy's granddaughter died.
Owners you are going to not believe look exactly like the meme of the dude who's licking his lips looking behind a tree. This guy is allegedly the owner's son right here. Ibrahim Ali, the son of the proprietor's owner, says it helps out with his homework and paperwork at the facility. He helps out with homework and paperwork. But here's the problem. You see, they caught a bunch of Somalis trucking in their kids, and then as soon as they checked their kids in, they ran out of the building with the kids again.
Another 10 minutes.
It's a bit of a problem.
For the scheme
here.
to work, the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance videos are from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care. This video from that same case shows a man handing out envelopes of what are believed to be kickback payments to parents who are in on the fraud.
Where was the money going? I don't know exactly where it went, but it.
Well, I know where it went. Everybody should check in with Ilhan Omar. But you can see here, I mean, that's a topic for another day, but she does. Her and her husband suddenly are running this massive hedge fund, and Ilhan Omar now suddenly is worth $30 million. Misspelled Minnesota daycare, quality leering trucks in children after viral fraud. There we go. So there were reporters outside the Quality Leering Center, and well, you could see highly unusual activity as parents appeared in these vans, and they brought their kids in. I was under the impression the place was permanently closed, but you can see here adults bringing kids into the Leering Center, exactly what you'd think. Monday's busy parking lot, roughly 20 kids streaming in and out. The Post stalked the site. Stark contrast the neighbor's description, saying that he's never seen a kid in the Quality Leering Center ever. Do you realize there's supposed to be 99 children in this building and there's no one here? Yeah, and I bet that they billed for 99 different children every single day for a full day. Nobody is working there. Nobody was ever working there. The whole thing is completely fraudulent. Everybody's asking questions now.
Nick Shirley, the YouTuber, if he was standing in front of you
I have
right
nothing
now.
against him himself, but I do have something against the rhetoric. It's if you're going to be a journalist, just have a moral compass. Like, do what you do correctly. If you catch business that are fraud, no one here is with that, or like we don't support that as a community. I don't support that myself. I was born and raised here. I'm not for fraud. Like the notion that hey, a certain batch of somebody got caught, so all of them support it. It's like no one. If in any community, any mishaps that happen, the rest of the community obviously doesn't want that to happen. It's a stain on all of our names, as you guys can see.
Well, you're literally standing in front of the Quality Leering Center that has never had a child inside of it and has billed the taxpayers $8 million. $8 million been billed from the Quality Leering Center to the taxpayers.
I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but I do feel like what was done was someone came to our building outside of operating hours. When there's a specific sign on our door that says our days and our hours, he came outside of those hours and then claimed, hey, they're closed and they're still making money. They're using taxpayer money to work. And it's like, you don't come outside of operational hours and then say they're using taxpayer money.
So the operational hours for this daycare are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That is not optimal time for daycare. Any parent will tell you not optimal time for daycare, and quite frankly, is exactly what you'd expect from a business that isn't actually in the business of caring for any children. Shocking unearthed footage show parents pretending to drop off kids at Minnesota daycare. From 2018, Minnesota criminal prosecution against Somali daycare fraudsters. In surveillance video, Somali parents would take their kids to the daycare, check them in, and then leave with them moments later. The owners of the daycare would bill the state for the full day. Yeah. Somali scams have been happening for at least a decade and got bigger and more brazen with every year. The authorities, like Trader Tim Walz, refuse to do anything. Shocking unearthed footage. This is a wonderful employee of the Quality Leering Center. See if you'd like to drop your kids off with him.
Well, save it, Aldi, and save the holiday spirit.
Join Planet Fitness for $1 down, $15 a month, and pay nothing until January 17th. Deal ends December 31st.
Don't this area.
What's your response to the allegations? Is there fraud going on here? No, it's a video. I just want to know. What's your response?
Problem.
Huh?
Get the out of here.
What's your response to the allegations?
Classic
Is there
child
fraud
care.
going on here? And is there children? That's all.
Don't harass people here.
Yeah, okay. Good job, everyone. Great job, everyone. Somali-run children's daycare named Quality Leering Center accused of trucking in children to make the daycare appear in use. Days after being exposed by Nick Shirley, around 20 children were seen going in and out of the daycare with this wonderful individual watching them again, doing the meme. Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, if you're going to be a journalist, have a moral compass. These people are lecturing us on who has the moral compass. Yeah. I knew this would happen. The Somali scammers are going to temporarily fill these empty daycares with kids to try and cover their tracks. Yeah. Yeah. Not good. Minnesota Children, Youth, and Families Commissioner Tiki Brown says that they're not taking fraud allegations seriously at the Quality Leering Center and other daycares. She claims that the Quality Leering Center was closed more than a week ago. While we have questions about some of the methods that were used in the video, we do take the concerns the video raises very seriously. She uses pronouns, and she says that the Leering Center has been closed. So it doesn't look very closed to me, right? You got guys dropping F-bombs outside. You got a bunch of ladies wearing hijabs, trucking in their kids. So wait a second, is it closed or isn't it? Derp. Yeah. Parking lot is now full of kids. That's right. Jeez. If you want to believe this was isolated bullshit, this fraud is in broad daylight in the Somali community. Everybody knew about it and everyone benefited from it. That's right. That's why it all needs to be shut down and everyone needs to go to jail. And it needs to happen fast because everybody's losing faith in the American system, like at scale. There's no way to describe how angry I am paying half my paycheck to these monsters so that they can just steal it. How much are you going to pay in your lifetime on taxes? You're going to pay millions of dollars in taxes in your lifetime. And it'll all go to one of these daycares. All of it. This one day, the Quality Leering Center, $8 million. So stay pissed and stay angry and stay subscribed. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. See ya.
Okay, short one on video on that one. I got a short 5 on the helicopter crash. And then we'll do a 3 short clip with George. And yes, Kim, I got a couple of Dougs for you.
This video from the scene just a few hours ago. We know that one person is dead, another one critically injured after 2 helicopters collided midair. This was in Hamilton, New Jersey. Again, 2 helicopters colliding in the air. We know each of those helicopters only had a pilot on board, so one pilot killed, the other one taken to the hospital with critical injuries tonight. And the police chief says this happened around 11:30 today local time. They had a video showing the helicopters spinning in the air before falling to the ground. And our partners at Fox 26 in Philadelphia were at the scene following this crash. They spoke to the owner of a cafe near the crash site who said that those 2 pilots were regulars at his restaurant. He says they would often have breakfast together before flying out together. He actually says that he and his customers watched the helicopters take off before they began spiraling downward just a few minutes later. Let's listen to him recount that scene from earlier today.
Can you say your name for us?
Sal Solipino. S-I-L-I-P-I-N-O.
And you own the cafe?
Myself and my wife, yeah.
What's the name of the cafe?
Apron Cafe at the Hamilton Airport.
And are you shocked to kind of hear what happened today?
Oh, it was shocking. Still shaking a little bit to see that happen. They were just at our cafe having breakfast. They're regulars. They come in every week or every other week. They fly in together. They seem to be very nice people. They're very, very kind to all of the workers, the staff, and all. And I said they were just leaving, and myself and I was with some of the customers watching them take off with the little kids that hang out by the windows watching the planes and helicopters take off. So we saw them take off, and then we watched them for a while, and one was a little bit further than the other guy, but I said they always fly together. And we turned around, we were talking, and then we looked up, and I saw the one spiraling down. I didn't see him hit or hit into or crash into anything. It's just I saw one go down, and then I saw the other one go down, and it was a little bit of disbelief. It's like, is that really happening? And then I put on my coat and went out there, and I saw the smoke and all, and I said, this really happened.
Did you call 911?
No, we heard the alarms. I guess there was a lot of people already seeing what happened, so there was a lot of people calling in. But I shouted out to my wife, I think those two guys just crashed. And it's a little bit of a disbelief, but it happened.
Can you talk about the two of them as friends, as pilots? If you know them?
I really don't. I don't know them personally. Just that they seem to come in all the time together. They fly in together, and they seem to be close. They sit together, and they seem to be good friends or relatives. I'm not sure.
How fast? I mean, how quickly? That split second when you saw that. Can you just talk about just how quickly that happened?
Okay, that was that. What do I have in this? Oh, it's Doug. Okay. First part was George.
Active efforts to leave Canada.
And it's clear that the U.S. government is prepared to recognize Alberta independence.
The people that we're meeting with go directly from our meetings to the Oval Office. So that's the level that we're meeting at.
There's something absolutely magnificent going on in Canada as we speak. The Patriots are rising up in what looks like their own 1776 moment, because Canada never had a 1776. In fact, they still sing God Save the King. Their monarch is King Charles. When Meghan Markle goes to Canada, they have to call her Princess. Princess Meghan. In the United States, because we have freedom over here, when she comes here, she's just some ghetto ratchet chick, some DEI princess. So in other words, Canadians are realizing they have been royally screwed. In the last few months, we've been hearing about Alberta, a province in Canada known for its vast oil reserves, seeking its independence from Canada, what many are calling a first step to U.S. statehood. And some say they want to be their own independent country, just heavily aligned with the United States. But what if I told you it's not just Alberta? Not only are they advancing and getting to that next step in their journey for secession, other provinces are joining along. I'll give you the info in a second. One of the most interesting dynamics that I'm noticing in Canada is they're going to the grocery stores in America versus in Canada, and they're realizing everything is half the price in the United States while people make double the money. Beef, for example.
So ground beef here, $5.88, and this is for 0.45 kg, which is actually 1 pound. But in Canada, when you look at this price, it's $10 for 450 grams, whereas the American version for 1 pound was $5 US. So this is 2.5 the price here in Canada. Absolutely crazy.
And this is going to be relevant for Black Canadians watching. Chicken.
Wow. So this is $10.72 for 4 pounds. In Canada, this is 1.6 kg for $24. You can literally get double the amount of chicken here at Winco versus just less than half for double the price in Canada at Walmart. That is absurd.
And finally, eggs.
This is a 12-pack of eggs for $1.97. In Canada, 12 eggs, $4.67. A 12-pack is going to be close to $5. So again, it's less than half the price when you're shopping here in the U.S. for eggs.
So in Canada, you earn less in a weaker currency, but pay more for everything. And you know what the Canadians are going to say about that? You know, they say about Canadians. It's about, not about. They're going to say, but our food is higher quality. We don't put chemicals in our stuff. Every developed country, if we're going to include Canada in that category, processes food. It's the same chemicals, same farming techniques. Don't act like you're not angry at the prices you guys have over there. The reason is because you are getting screwed by your leadership. First Trudeau in 2015 and now Carney in 2025. They are screwing you guys over. Don't make excuses. Stand up for yourselves, because that's exactly what Alberta is doing. Breaking news from Rise of Alberta says meetings are happening at the highest level in Washington with the United States State Department as it regards to Alberta's independence. The United States, meaning the Trump administration, views a free and independent Alberta as aligned with its national security interest, and I would add economic interest there as well. This is because the referendum to vote on separation from Canada was approved by the election body in Alberta. And now the Alberta Prosperity Project, which is pushing the independence movement, has 4 months to collect nearly 178,000 signatures. And it's not just a citizen-led effort. Danielle Smith, the premier of Alberta, seems to be on board because her provincial government passed Bill 14, which allows citizen initiatives to go ahead, even if their constitutionality has not been assessed. This prevented the lower courts, who have done it before, from preventing the referendum from appearing on the ballot. Okay, so this guy over here is one of the leaders behind this independence movement, and he says he and others have been meeting with U.S. officials who are on their side. And if the United States recognizes Alberta as an independent nation, then it is an independent nation. You understand? We run the world over. So you.
That was part one. Yeah. I just found an update out of Arizona, you guys. They found some evidence. Part two.
Meeting with go directly from our meetings to the Oval Office. So that's the level that we're meeting at. We're at it for several hours, going through all of the ways in which the United States government could support Alberta independence when the timing was right. They are very enthusiastic about Alberta becoming an independent country. I mean, the one thing that we all fervently believe and have in common is that the government in Ottawa and the landlocking of Alberta's resources is being done by Ottawa at the behest of the Communist Chinese. And the Americans, see it within their national interest, both under the Monroe Doctrine that's been around forever and their new national security strategy, to support Alberta independence and freeing the third largest oil field in the world from control by the Communist Chinese. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about is that the reason that the Chinese want to keep Alberta oil and gas landlocked is because they don't want Japan and South Korea to have a steady and stable supply of oil and gas coming out of the third largest oil field in the world, right? In terms of why it is that the United States is so supportive of a free and independent Alberta. So we were excited about that. We talked about a West Coast pipeline being one of the things that Alberta would like to see immediately upon independence. And that would be a pipeline going from Alberta through Idaho or Montana, Idaho, and either Washington or Oregon to the West Coast to supply that Asian market. And the Americans were very.
Okay, I guess I better show the update. I'll come back to George.
The election. Was that your organization that determined there were that number of failed signatures, or was that the number reported by all of the counties in Arizona?
So, Madam Chair, Senator Bennett, that number is based on a review of a quarter of the 1.9 million envelopes from the 2020 election. We used 150 trained workers that studied the Secretary of State manual and followed those guidelines. And then they analyzed each voter record individually. Once we got the statistics for that first 25% or 400,000 ballots, then it was extrapolated to determine the final number.
Those are Maricopa County.
That is just Maricopa County.
Wow.
That's the point I was going to make, Madam Chair, is I think Maricopa alone had 2,089,563 ballots in 2020, and about 1.9 million of them were by mail. And so your group analyzed about 25% of those 1.9 million in Maricopa County, came up with a percentage that you considered to have failed signature verification, then you extrapolated to get to the 420,000.
I told
Madam
you.
Chair,
good
Senator
news.
Bennett, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, proceed.
Signature verification has been that third rail in Maricopa County. You can't touch it, you can't talk about it. And that was really the line in the sand that the county drew during the Arizona audit. And it's not difficult to see why they don't want us looking at those signatures, because guess what? They don't match.
So signature verification is a process to the affidavit in order to determine whether it's a. There are two areas that we looked at that we want to share with you. One is the signature verification of 2020 and how that relates to 2022. 420,987 ballot envelopes failed signature verification in the 2020 election. The system was never repaired. Because of that, those same issues that caused the massive amount of failures was still in existence in the 2020 election.
In the 2022?
A 2022 election, which has left our system still vulnerable.
I'm going to replay it.
Who determined the number 420,987 from the 2020 election? Was that your organization that determined there were that number of failed signatures, or was that the number reported by all of the counties in Arizona?
So, Madam Chair, Senator Bennett, that number is based on a review of a quarter of the 1.9 million envelopes from the 2020 election. We used 150 trained workers that studied the Secretary of State manual and followed those guidelines. And then they analyzed each voter record individually. Once we got the statistics for that first 25% or 400,000 ballots, then it was extrapolated to determine the final number.
Those are Maricopa County.
That is just Maricopa County.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make, Madam Chair, is I think Maricopa County alone had 2,089,563 ballots in 2020, and about 1.9 million of them were by mail. And so your group analyzed about 25% of those 1.9 million in Maricopa County, came up with a percentage that you considered to have failed signature verification, then you extrapolated to get to the 420,000.
Madam Chair, Senator Bennett, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, proceed.
Signature verification has been that third rail in Maricopa County. You can't touch it, you can't talk about it. And that was really the line in the sand that the county drew during the Arizona audit. And it's not difficult to see why they don't want us looking at those signatures, because guess what? They don't match.
So signature verification is a process by which you take the voter ballot envelope and compare it to the affidavit in order to determine whether it's a legitimate vote. So there are two areas that we looked at that we want to share with you today. The first one is the signature verification of 2020 and how that relates to 2022. 420,987 ballot envelopes failed signature verification in the 2020 election. The system was never repaired. And because of that, those same issues that caused the massive amount of failures was still in existence in the 2020 election.
In the 2022?
In the 2022 election, which has left our system still vulnerable.
Well, there you have it. That's one state. So I wonder how many states did all that. And they say that was, didn't they say Arizona was secure? Mostly secured election? People lie so much and get away with it.
So that's the level that we're meeting at. We were at it for several hours, going through all of the ways in which the United States government could support Alberta independence when the timing was right. They are very enthusiastic about Alberta becoming an independent country. I mean, the one thing that we all fervently believe and have in common is that the government in Ottawa and the landlocking of Alberta's resources is being done by Ottawa at the behest of the Communist Chinese, and the Americans, see it within their national interest, both under the Monroe Doctrine that's been around forever and their new national security strategy, to support Alberta independence and freeing the third largest oil field in the world from control by the Communist Chinese. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about is that the reason that the Chinese want to keep Alberta oil and gas landlocked is because they don't want Japan and South Korea to have a steady and stable supply of oil and gas coming out of the third largest oil field in the world, right? In terms of why it is that the United States is so supportive of a free and independent Alberta. So we were excited about that. We talked about a West Coast pipeline being one of the things that Alberta would like to see immediately upon independence. And that would be a pipeline going from Alberta through Idaho, or Montana, Idaho, and either Washington or Oregon to the West Coast to supply that Asian market. And the Americans were very supportive of that. So we were talking to the U.S. government about support for our pensioners and converting, Alberta pensions at par from Canadian dollars to U.S. dollars. Things like that. We're also talking about doing a feasibility study, which we're going to get working on right away, to establish a $500 billion line of credit for the country of Alberta, so that immediately upon a successful referendum result, Alberta could trigger a $500 billion line of credit, so that when we negotiate with Ottawa, we'll be negotiating from a position of strength and not from weakness. So, we want to be able to sidestep, what we see the inevitable response from Ottawa will be to Alberta becoming an independent country, which is to try to screw with us as much as they can on the fiscal and monetary side. So, I mean, if we're backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. Treasury, collateralized with the Alberta oil field, oil and gas resources, we've got no reason not to be able to succeed in our negotiations with Ottawa and successfully removing Alberta from Canada and becoming an independent country.
Oh, this is crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said earlier, it's not just Alberta, Quebec and Saskatchewan. Sassy. I'm sorry, Canadians. I can't say that name, man. Saskatchewan. Oh, maybe I said it. So you have 3 major Canadian provinces that are now home to active efforts to leave Canada. The article from the National Post reads, with Alberta potentially staring down the barrel of a separation referendum, a new independence group is now touring. Whatever. Urging residents to join them. Over the last 3 weeks, the Sassy Prosperity Project has conducted 10 town halls in churches, civic centers, and banquet rooms, all of them advertised with the slogan of, what would an independent Sassy look like? According to the group's Facebook page, turnout hasn't been bad, at least by the standards of wintertime prairie political meetups. A gathering in Saskatoon reportedly received 160 attendees, with another in Swift Current attracting 260. That's big for Canada. Here's the graphic for you to understand. Sassy is next to Alberta, and on the other side, that is Quebec. I think 6 million people live in Alberta, might be a similar amount in next door Saskatchewan, and probably much more in Quebec. So we could be getting a 3-for-1 special here. And the blue dots are the oil fields. You can see Alberta and Saskatchewan have a lot of oil. They can be economically independent. Those 2 provinces probably hold over half of Canada's oil reserves. So if they vote to be independent countries, maybe they combine and become one country, or we allow them to be states, which Democrats in Congress would oppose, of course, because they would be red states, then we would be so powerful. The United States, with Big Alberta and Sassy, would be the greatest empire in human history. The United States would more than double its oil reserves. And the reason these Canadian provinces, by the way, can't access their oil resources is because the Canadian government has given unnecessary power to the indigenous tribes. Why are you giving them so much of a say over the development of your country? That never made any sense to me. It's like you conquered them. They should be listening to you, not the other way around. Oh, it's such a beautiful map. This is Keith Wilson, a constitutional lawyer in Alberta pushing for independence, saying, we have the United States support.
Okay, last part. We'll get Billy Bean coming up pretty quick.
History of man. This is not a novel concept. Countries don't necessarily, and their boundaries remain static. In all of our lifetimes, we've witnessed countries form and countries disappear. So one of the ways in which Alberta can become an independent country, according to the Supreme Court of Canada in the 1998 reference case, because remember, the Supreme Court of Canada laid out a constitutional pathway for a province like Alberta to hold a province-wide referendum on a clear question. And if a clear majority say, yes, we want to become an independent country and a new nation state, then that sets a legal process in motion. One way to finalize that process and complete the process of becoming to nationhood is to have negotiations between Alberta, the other provinces, First Nations, and the federal government on the details of the divorce, so to speak. There's no certainty that those negotiations will be successful. The Supreme Court of Canada recognized this in paragraph 155 of their decision, and 154. They talk about the concept of unilateral recognition by other nation states. And Canada has set a very important precedent supportive of Alberta going that route of being recognized by other countries as an independent country through Carney's unilateral announcement last September, in September of 2025, where he had the government of Canada unilaterally recognize the state of Palestine.
So he's saying if the United States recognizes Alberta as an independent country, then it shall be so. President Trump, this is your time to shine.
And it's clear that the U.S. government is prepared to recognize Alberta independence. And if it occurs in a democratic referendum vote, it recognizes, the U.S. has a history of recognizing that free people have the ability to choose their form of government. And so this is really significant because it's Alberta's largest trading partner. They're our closest geographic trading partner. And so it's very exciting to have us going into 2026 with the United States and its growing economy showing a willingness to recognize Alberta, and the fact that the Carney government cleared the way for this and legitimized it through the Carney government's actions of recognizing Palestine.
That's really interesting, ladies and gentlemen.
What I expect is going to happen is I think we're going to win this vote in October, and I think we're going to win it handily. And then I think what's going to happen is there's going to be discussions with the United States concurrently and simultaneously with discussions with the other provinces and Canada. And I think we're going to seek to negotiate trade pacts with both the other provinces and Canada, but importantly with the United States.
Oh man, these guys have been planning this for years. You can sense it. I want you guys to take a look at how Alberta actually works, because they need 178,000 signatures to get the referendum on a ballot, which if approved by a majority of the voters, they get to be their own independent country, especially after US recognition. Right now, Alberta's premier is Danielle Smith of the United Conservative Party. Her biggest opponent is Rachel Notley, the former premier of Alberta and the leader of the New Democratic Party, which is a leftist party. Even in a bad election year, Danielle Smith won handedly with almost 930,000 votes, and her opponent at 777,000 votes. Danielle Smith is expected to win by even more. The viability of Alberta being a country is there. It has everything necessary to be a country. Alberta's population is 5 million with hundreds of thousands of businesses, and its GDP is $364 billion. That's a third of a trillion with 5 million people. Alberta's GDP is bigger than
countries.
Okay, that was news out of Canada there from George. 3 clips there. So we're going to play the first Doug, and then followed with the one Billy video and then go back and do the others.
For the Happy Patriot Talk, this is going to be a bigger exposition, not just on in defense of, Harmeet Dillon doing her job, Pam Bondi doing her job, but the right-wing media that is lying to you. And I mean fellow channels of mine that come up on your feed that told you certain things and they were paid to say it. We're going to take a look at this Scott Adams tweet. He's the author, a comic book artist of Dilbert on his deathbed with cancer, so pray for him. And he needs to come to the Lord. I believe he's an atheist, but I don't know. Okay, here's Scott Adams. It's not my job to defend Pam Bondi, but in the real world, a rapid 10x increase in workload can't be quickly fixed by staffing up. So he is saying, like, people that expect her well, just staff up and fix the problem. And he's defending Pam Bondi. Scott Adams is a comic book artist, and I'm a comic book artist. Why are the people who are getting the right-wing news commentary correct and telling you the truth comic book artists and not news people? I don't know. Here's his final quote here. We all, and frankly, he is correcting General Michael Flynn Jr. He says, we all want to see more faster prosecutions. Agreed. I'm as frustrated as you are, but can we stop pretending we know how fast things should be moving in this environment? That's a valid question. I'm going to explain to you more at the end of this video, more specifics on exactly why it takes so long. It'll all make sense to you, I promise. And you'll stop thinking Pam Bondi isn't doing her job. You'll start thinking more and more, I've convinced many of you now in the chat, she's the best attorney general we've ever had, doing the best job a human being could possibly do. How about that? And right-wing people that tell you different, they don't know, or they do know and they're lying to you. Here's Harmeet Dillon over on the TPUSA. So this is Turning Point. This is Charlie Kirk's podcast. And she's going to go into how the actual right-wing media, right-wingers on Twitter are getting paid to tell you lies. Right-wing, not left-wing, MAGA people who claim to be MAGA, come on a show, fancy title. And I've seen these shows, tons of views, lots of clicks, lots of money from you watching them. Lots of thumbs up and comments in their section, lots of subscribers over there, and you're being lied to. And then you're basically paying them to lie to you. Here's Harmeet Dillon.
And you were or perhaps you just observed some of the questions that were circulating about this post-January 6th prosecution. People want accountability for some of the stuff that happened. Obviously, we share those desires. And you just basically said, am I going to have to put down my knitting and explain the statute of limitations to you people? So the floor is yours. What sparked this, and what do you want the country, the conservative movement to know?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for asking. It is certainly very frustrating to those of us at the Department of Justice, where we are doing so much. We are winning so many cases, including at the Supreme Court. We are putting wins on the board. And Attorney General Pam Bondi and the rest of us keep getting criticized for not having arrests, like arrests are entertainment or bread and circuses, when in fact...
Yeah, arrests are entertainment and bread and circuses. That's part of the problem is we're in it for different reasons. We want to see the big perps, the big Adam Schiff, the big walk. And she goes, they're working as hard as they can at the Department of Justice, and they're being criticized for their hard work. Some are saying they should be replaced. So you have the hardest workers for the Trump administration, for America and for MAGA, and you have MAGA and the right, because of social media and being paid, frauds being paid, are spreading the word to fire the most effective people. And what? Hire Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr, who are the last two that we have to compare, or Merrick Garland to compare Pam Bondi to. Pam Bondi's incredible. She's an incredible superhero. And I've been saying this for quite a while now, and my argument is growing as I learn more facts. You're 100% being lied to by other channels, and I've been telling you the truth. There. I said it. It's becoming clearer to me over time how much of the truth I've been telling you and how much of a lie they've been telling you.
There are arrests, and there is a very lively activity from a very committed and I think the most conservative Department of Justice that we've ever have.
The most conservative Department of Justice we've ever had under Pam Bondi. Tell that to your friends. And also tell them more arrests than ever before. So people tell you, though, there's no arrests, there's no arrests. More arrests under Pam Bondi than ever before. You say that on Twitter, you'll get dogpiled. You'll get dogpiled. They'll go, how much is Israel paying you to say that? They'll unsubscribe, they'll unfriend you because the lies are so deeply ingrained in the conservative movement. And I'm here to dig out that poison from in your head.
So, and I don't think it's just people asking questions. What I was responding to was what looked to me like an organized campaign of stupid commentary that falsely claimed that because January 6th is coming up, there's a 5-year statute of limitations that expires on January 6, 2025. And if the Attorney General and the DOJ hasn't indicted people by that time, then that statute of limitations has run. And
Okay. So I saw this story unfold before me with many of my favorite right-wing people where I pull my news from, and they carried this exact lie that she said. She said, people said the statute of limitations are going to run out. And that was wrong. So my question is, how does something wrong get spread so far throughout the Republican Party and conservatives and supposed Christians and truth tellers? How does a lie get carried by so many people? It was completely invented, and it's not true that the statute of limitations run out on January 5th and they keep going 12 days, 10 days, 9 days, 8 days. It's not true. She just now said it goes through at least summer because that's when they actually made the indictment. Actually made the claim was 5 years ago, this coming summer in 2026. So why are people just repeating a lie with no evidence and no news behind it? And she said it's a paid, coordinated campaign, she believes.
I think it is paid. I think I see certainly those types of influencers on X who are monetized repeating this propaganda almost word for word.
And that's the real thing that I'm suspect of. They're paid and they repeat it word for word. I'll see it in the chat too. And then a whole bunch of people repeat it in the chat. So that's either a person who's believing a lie, and that's why they're repeating it word for word, literally cutting and pasting what they read from another, and then they're all saying the same thing. Or it's a bot, because that's how you program a bot. You say, take this message and spread it out to 100,000 sites, 100,000 posts on Twitter, and you have 100,000 fake accounts that look like real people flooding my comments, flooding X with these fake words, all the same. That's why I was always going like, why is everyone saying like there's no arrests, nothing will happen? Weird, they use the exact same words because people are different. We don't all use the exact same words.
I was frustrated by it. I saw some pushback. It wasn't enough pushback. And so I decided to get out there and, spew some facts. Namely, there is no statute of limitations that runs on that day. There are various statutes that are going to run on a rolling basis, and some haven't even expired because there's a continuing conspiracy, which I think you could make the case for in some circumstances. The statute of limitations doesn't begin to run, i.e. start, until that conspiracy and those overt acts and furtherance of the conspiracy end. And so I put some facts out there. And I also expressed my frustration that so-called conservative influencers are clearly getting paid to spread clickbait disinformation. And it's
so-called conservative influencers are getting paid to spread clickbait information. So you get clicks and you get rich. And just so you know, guys, this is in the term that when I was first to come out and tell the truth about this stuff, I lost money, lost clicks, and lost subscribers. So that's my virtue signal to you going, I am not getting paid. I'm not one of those people that benefited from this. So I don't go to sleep at night feeling guilty about what I tell you going, I wonder, how do I look? You guys, I did this all in public. I even told you guys when the subs drained out. So you buyer beware. You're the buyer with what you choose to pay attention to. And some of you, just by watching videos, are rewarding channels that continue to lie to you, and they're paid to lie to you to influence the election away from the MAGA agenda.
It's really annoying to me, and I wish people would get a life or at least inform themselves and try to be honest instead of just trying to make money off of the desperation of a less informed populace.
Making money off the desperation of a less informed populace. That is not something we do. I think many people in my audience are a less informed populace. That's why I'm here to inform you with good stuff. I'm not paid to say anything.
This robotic puppy is so lifelike, it actually fooled my neighbour who's a veterinarian. I've been aggrieved.
Against my values, I say stuff, and this is a great job.
5
But you
minutes.
guys see me say a lot of stuff that frankly divides my audience, and that, that's not always wise. Here's the last piece I want to show you. This is by an ex-member of the Department of Justice. His name is, he checks out, but his name is Shipwrecked Crew. It's kind of like In Exile. They're shipwrecked crew. There is a fundamental lack of understanding about the job of Attorney General. So we're going to reverse that fundamental understanding right now. And the enormous size of the Department of Justice. There are two main components of DOJ, both of which fall under the authority of the Attorney General. 94 U.S. attorney offices, one in each federal judicial district. Main justice in Washington, D.C., made up of 8 major divisions: national security, criminal, civil rights, etc. The 93 U.S. attorney offices have approximately 6,500 assistant U.S. attorneys, like prosecutions in federal courtrooms. Main justices divisions have another 3,200 trial attorneys. Each division has multiple sections where expertise is further refined. Civil rights has sections involving criminal, voting rights, disability rights. That's Harmeet Dillon. Listen to this, guys. There are thousands of civil lawsuits pending on any given day. Thousands. There are tens of thousands of criminal cases filed under investigation every single day. There are 70 different federal law enforcement agencies across the executive branch, cabinet departments, who can refer criminal matters to DOJ for prosecution. This work does not, listen to this, this work does not all stop and start all over again from scratch with a change in administration, such as the new AG Pam Bondi can decide on day one what gets continued and what gets ended. Thousands of cases under the Biden administration launched and continue, even though Pam Bondi's there. She can't go in and just cancel them. That's not the way the DOJ works. Nearly all of it must be continued. The staffing only changes at the margins. New supervisors get promoted by the Department of Justice. Attorneys largely carry over from one administration to the next because the work doesn't change. The priorities might change, but nearly all of the ongoing work is continued. I went through a change in parties in White House 3 times. So this is what I mean by he knows what he's talking about with the Department of Justice. From Bush 41 to Bill Clinton, from Bill Clinton to Bush 43, from Bush 43 to Obama. He was there when the change happened. Leadership changed, enforcement priorities were reorganized, but most of the work was the same. So Pam Bondi inherited a bunch of cases, thousands a day, from Joe Biden, and they continue. AG Pam Bondi and the Trump administration have suffered through an unprecedented turnover in attorney staff in some divisions, such as civil rights, which is the most politically sensitive. The resignation termination rate was 2/3 or greater. They lost 2/3 of the department to cover thousands of civil rights cases that came out in every day. Department of Justice is a huge freighter on the ocean with a massive cargo it carries every day. It is not a speedboat where the person in controls can turn it around simply by jerking the wheel. The Associate Attorney General number 3 post at Department of Justice wasn't even confirmed until after the government shutdown in November. Only 4 out of 15 assistant attorney generals were confirmed prior to the government shutdown. These positions run each of the 8 litigation divisions and a handful of other key offices in the Department of Justice. Only 2 out of 93 of U.S. attorneys were confirmed prior to the government shutdown. The number is now up to 31 out of 93. Now, here's the conclusion. The social media influencers blaming Pam Bondi because their little projects most important to them aren't getting the attention they think is deserved, are largely ignorant, all caps, ignorant about the complexity of the task Pam Bondi took on. There's your answer. There's your new truth. Hold on to it. It's a fact. We've only reported that because I don't want you to be ignorant. And there's people that demand ignorance. They unsubscribe. They're like, I want to stay ignorant. You're informing me. Goodbye. Okay. Their gripes are more about fattening their checking accounts with X revenue sharing than anything actually substantive. And guys, now you've been informed.
Okay, that's the first, Doug. I got that one guy from Arizona, 5 minutes, and then I'll do Billy. And then do the 20-minute cast video. It's this one.
Has seen it all. He's burned, betrayed, and backstabbed more times than we can count. But now his eyes are wide open. He's separating the true warriors from the snakes in the grass, the friends from the enemies hiding in plain sight. And very soon, the administration is getting a major shakeup. Hold on tight, because 2026 is shaping up to be the year justice finally arrives. Arrests, indictments, accountability. You won't believe what we're about to see in the coming weeks. Do me a huge favor, ladies and gentlemen, smash that thumbs up. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you're a MAGA patriot like myself. Leave me a comment. How's your day going? Where are you from? And please share the link with a couple friends. Now, former CIA assets, Patrick Burns, who is now a whistleblower exposing the swamp, joined Alex Jones last night to reveal to us what insiders from the Trump administration are telling him about Trump. He sees the snakes. He's about to expose the snakes. He's about to fire a lot of people and replace them with real patriots.
My understanding is Trump has reached the point where there's no more mystery for him. He understands the gravity. He understands what has happened. He understands.
And he knows who's told him the truth over and over and over again.
He knows, I feel this all could have been done by February 1st or February 15th, Valentine's Day. But it took there was a lot of bureaucracy. And Trump ordered the right things. He signed the right things all along. The bureaucracy fights him. The deep state, he signed it took like April till they interviewed the key whistleblowers. There's over a dozen. And a lot of feds involved in this. But it took and Trump signed the right thing to start a special task force. The deep state by June, July, not a person had been moved, not a dollar has been shifted.
Well, Todd Blanche sits on the task force.
Todd Blanche.
He blocks it.
That's how they do it. They fight from within so his orders don't get implemented. He's like moving through a swamp. It's like wading through a swamp up their chest. You really can't run. You can't sprint.
Now, I want you to listen to the first part again.
My understanding is Trump has reached the point where there's no more mystery for him. He understands the gravity.
So Trump has reached a point to where he now understands who's on his side and who's not, who's on team MAGA and who's on team globalist, who's on team God and good and who's on team Satan and evil. See, Trump, and I want to add really quickly to what he said, Trump did sign all the right legislatures. Trump did sign all the right laws and executive orders. But there are people within his own administration that are sabotaging this stuff. The people that are supposed to fulfill the president's wishes and desires are stopping them. Same thing in Congress. This is why we need to watch Congress very closely right now, because we're going into an election year and we need to primary every rhino. We need to primary every single rhino. I'm talking about Lindsey Graham's. I'm talking about many others. You guys know who they are. There's a lot of rhinos in that Senate and Congress. We need to primary them and replace them with MAGA patriots. Trump is about to start firing people. I believe a huge shakeup is coming to the DOJ. Remember this, clip this. The DOJ is about to get shooken up before the end of February. Completely overhauled. We're talking.
Wow, that's good. Another good one. George came out with another one, but I don't know if we'll get to it or not.
Rounding up the end of 2025. And some of the things we can look forward to on January 1 is a G1 produced by the December 29 3 M flares plus 1 C flare. So a CME came off the sun, will give a glancing blow to the earth, most likely producing a G1 on January 1. And I'd like to say thank you to Jonelle Enterprises for extra support for my channel. So let's get started. We know we've had some significant things happen on Monday. We had President Trump in a 1.5 to 2 hour phone call with President Putin, during which it appears that certain parties who are also aligned with NATO and the EU against America, most likely embedded in the U.S. military and certain federal agencies, coordinated an attack during the phone call between President Trump and President Putin, an assassination attempt on President Putin and on one of his family homes located in Valny, Russia, putting forth 90 drones that could only have been coordinated by the U.S. So this appears and has angered both President Trump and President Putin, representing a direct assault on the peace plan between the two presidents, and most likely put forth, as I say, by certain individuals who are embedded in the U.S. military and certain government agencies. I predict, look for a major purge in January inside the U.S. military and certain federal agencies. So that's going on. Russia was able to take down all of the drones. No casualties have been put forth. But now, and we saw on Sunday, President Trump met with the non-president of Ukraine, Zelensky, at Florida, Mar-a-Lago, during which Zelensky asked the United States to give Ukraine 50 years of security. We've got this to say, the American people, to the non-president of Ukraine, Zelensky, shut up. So that's going on. We have traitors everywhere. And we have this going on. So from Canadian Prepper News, we have that, and also from Breitbart, we know in the U.S., and so we see some of the traitors also in the U.S., and we see Tim Walz, Democrat, who is going for his third term as governor of Minnesota, having his campaign burned to the ground by the people of Minnesota. And this is linked to the Somali fraud. And we have excellent sources coming out and demonstrating clearly, presenting evidence that Tim Walz, Democrat, we know the Democrats have gone full stop commie inside the U.S., had been made aware by credible whistleblowers, excuse me, inside the Minnesota government of the Somali fraud inside Minnesota, racking up billions of dollars to illegitimate and non-existent shell companies and so on. And then we've had sources who said the plan by the deep state via the Somali group inside Minnesota was to steal the money from the U.S. government and then fund Somali terrorists inside the U.S. to kill American citizens. Tens of thousands of people in Minnesota are waking up to the real world, and it's coming out that Governor Tim Walz squashed the efforts of the credible Minnesota government whistleblowers to this fraud and appears to be complicit with Somali terrorists and the deep state. I would find it highly unlikely that Tim Walz will win a third term as governor of Minnesota in a real vote count. Now, we can't dismiss the possibility of voter fraud. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. And we have this.
Join Planet Fitness for $1 down, $15 a month, and pay nothing until January 17th. Deal ends December 31st.
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words,
Pam Bondi of the DOJ in Minnesota has charged 96 individuals with fraud, 85 of which are Somali. 60 have already been found guilty. Efforts are now being put forth by the federal government to denaturalize those Somali citizens who had become American citizens. But the federal government has the right, if a person from a foreign country comes in and becomes an American citizen, then commits crimes against the government, the U.S. government can then take away their American citizenship and deport them. A move is on under President Trump's DOJ to do just that. And we have the FBI also sending large teams into Minnesota to dismantle the fraud network. So that's going on. And we have this. We have also also over the weekend, President Trump has given public statements that the U.S. has hit Venezuela. It appears to be a hit inside Venezuela in a major port from which we're launching the narco-terrorist boats. But we don't have details yet. We do have President Trump over the weekend making at least 2 public statements that this had already happened as early as last Friday. And we have this. President Trump made a statement that the U.S. has hit Venezuela. They made hit a large land site, it's believed, and they made the strike from the Caribbean. So we have this going on. We have troops in Puerto Rico and the small islands of Trinidad and Tobago, and then certainly ships and troops from the Caribbean. President Trump specified that the attack came on land from the Caribbean. We also have U.S. troops in Ecuador and also Peru. It's believed they will launch through Colombia to take Colombia and Venezuela over land. So that's going on. And another piece of information that substantiates my position that NATO had to coordinate those 90 drones hitting near the home of one of the homes of President Putin. Another indicator that the U.S. was involved, and the EU and NATO, is that while the drone strikes were going on in Europe, They had their over-the-horizon radar on. So that's going on. And we have this. Yes, the attack on President Putin's home, according to Hal Turner's intel. And that happened Monday during the phone call between President Trump and President Putin. No doubt to send a message by the EU, the NATO, and the traitors inside the U.S. military and the U.S. federal government to both presidents that they were in control. I submit President Trump and Secretary of War Hegseth and head of the Joint Chiefs, General Raisin Kane, will begin a major purge beginning January. We have a public statement now coming out from Russia's spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, that Russia's retaliation strikes will now be aimed at taking out Budanov, head of Ukraine Intel, Malak, head of Ukraine Security, and Zersky, head of Ukraine military. You try to assassinate the leader of your opponent, this is what you get in response. But then, most likely, these individuals will simply suck up the billions of dollars they've stolen from the American people and get out of Dodge. We have this from Canadian Prepper, Russian intel source, Yusakov, who says that the EU and NATO, and as I put forth, traitors within the U.S. military and the U.S. government, are doing everything they can to sabotage peace talks between the U.S. and Russia and want the peace talk negotiations to fail. And it's believed in January, put forth by this Russian intel source, that Russia will hit Ukraine really, really hard. And Russia has now canceled vacations for its military and government officials. And that January 10, Russian banks will begin to restrict how much cash Russian citizens can withdraw from their banks. So we see this is borne out by history. When a nation goes to full stop war, they also put controls over their banks. After all, many times they want to control who can take their money and get out of the country, demonstrating that they are an internal traitor. And it's believed by military analysts that NATO, the EU, and traitors within the U.S. military and government agencies want war with Russia and will do any kind of false flag they need to do, especially to push the American people into a war footing.
You have any idea what we've been through today?
Under 5 minutes, you guys.
Boy.
It's Morty Supreme.
Yes!
I'm Morty Normal. We believe in you.
Morty Supreme, rated R. There's a Harbor Freight store in your neighborhood. And the thing about neighborhoods.
And we have this. So Hal Turner's intel, December 29, about 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The U.S. has hit a Venezuelan port. We don't know which location yet. And that NATO, via the drone strikes, and the EU and the traitors in the U.S. military and government put forth a false flag hit on an assassination attempt on President Putin. So that's going on. And we have this. Yes. So the drones were to hit President Putin's residence. It's being reported publicly 90 drones were put in the air and that Russia took all of them down. And that this occurred 12 hours after President Trump's meeting with Zelensky on Sunday, and also took place during the phone call between President Trump and President Putin. I submit the traitors in America, NATO, and the EU timed the drone assassination attempt on President Putin during the phone call between President Trump and President Putin to send a message to America. And I feel comfortable being one of the people of America to say to these non-American groups, shut up. So it's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Really mean. So I got 3 short ones, 2 5, 3-minute one, and then we'll get cash, and then the second Doug video.
Executed under sealed indictments and international wartime jurisdiction. These arrests are not political theater. They are precision strikes against an integrated global criminal network that operated above national law for decades. The targets are not low-level operatives. They are financial controllers, NGO intermediaries, media gatekeepers, pharmaceutical executives, intelligence cutouts, and religious laundering channels used to move money, traffic influence, and shield crimes. The same structure repeats across continents because it was centralized by design. This is why multiple countries are involved simultaneously. Jurisdiction hopping no longer works. Diplomatic immunity no longer protects. Offshore accounts no longer hide assets. Military tribunals bypass corrupted civil courts that were compromised long ago. Financial freezes are already active. Shell foundations are being dismantled. Data servers are being seized. Evidence chains are locked and mirrored across multiple allied commands. This phase is about containment, isolation, and extraction. Public exposure always comes last. The delay people sense is not hesitation. It is sequencing. You do not announce a takedown while the network is still being rounded up. You cut the exits first. This operation is synchronized with global financial restructuring, asset recovery, and institutional collapse prevention. Removing the criminals without stabilizing the system would trigger chaos. This is why the process is controlled, quiet, and methodical. History will record this period as the moment the shadow governance ended. That's right, nothing can stop what's coming. This is dark to light. And remember,
that's that one guy we haven't heard in a while. I don't think we played this one. I can't remember. Remember this one, Gay?
Arrived when the state was just starting to discover what lay beneath its soil. And now, after 145 years, they are leaving. The entire corporate headquarters packed up and moved to Houston. You probably saw the headlines. But do you know what pushed them out? Do you know what their chief executive officer finally admitted? Because Chevron is the second largest oil company in America. They made $17.7 billion in profit in 2024. Their Richmond refinery in California alone supports 3,800 jobs and generates $1.1 billion a year for the region. A company that profitable and that size does not just leave a state after 145 years. And their CEO finally explained why. Mike Wirth did not hide behind corporate language. He came right out and said it. He said the policies in California, he said, have become pretty restrictive on a lot of business fronts, not just the environment. Then he said something that should concern every driver in the state. He said, I do not know that there is a better place in the world for us to do business than Texas and the Gulf Coast. And California, he said, has advanced policies that do the opposite. You need to know that the Richmond refinery that Chevron opened in California in 1902 is California's largest. One out of every 5 cars in Northern California runs on fuel from Richmond. That is roughly 2 million cars dependent on one refinery. It processes 245,000 barrels of crude oil every single day. That is 15% of California's entire refining capacity, the largest single refinery in the state. It supplies 60% of the jet fuel for Bay Area airports, including San Francisco International Airport and Oakland International Airport, fueling thousands of flights daily. And it produces 100% of the lubricating base oils for the entire West Coast. Not most of them, all of them. That is the oil in your engine, the grease in factory machines, the fluid that keeps industrial equipment alive from Seattle to San Diego. Every bit of it starts at Richmond. But even that's not all. Do you know that the city of Richmond depends on Chevron more than almost any city depends on any company? The refinery pays nearly 24% of the city's entire general fund. That's $58.8 million a year, just in taxes. Chevron employs around 1,200 workers directly. When that refinery runs, Richmond runs. So why would a company walk away from all of this? The war between Chevron and California has been building for years, and it started with a disaster that should have been prevented. Did you know Chevron's own inspectors warned about this catastrophe for over a decade? In August 2012, a pipe ruptured at the Richmond refinery. State investigators later found the pipe had corroded so badly it went from 1/4 of an inch thick to no thicker than a credit card. Chevron's own people had flagged the corrosion for years, but management ignored them. They kept the pipe running even after workers noticed drips from the leak. And then when the pipe finally burst, it released a vapor cloud that ignited within minutes. A massive fireball sent toxic black smoke across the East Bay. The plume drifted over Richmond, San Pablo, and surrounding communities. 15,000 people went to hospitals complaining of breathing problems and eye irritation. 15,000. From one accident that Chevron's own people had seen coming for years. The Federal Chemical Safety Board investigated. California's OSHA issued 25 citations, including 6 serious and 9 willful violations. California hit Chevron with the highest penalties in the state workplace safety agency's history. The federal government eventually extracted more than $160 million in settlements across multiple Chevron refineries. Chevron spent $1 billion modernizing Richmond after the fire. They had no choice. But the relationship with California never recovered. But California was not done, not even close. In September 2023, Attorney General Rob Bonta called Chevron a liar. 50 years of deception, he said. 50 years of hiding what they knew about climate change. And guess who stood right beside him? Governor Newsom. He said, for more than 50 years, big oil has been lying to us. Here's what happened. The state claims Chevron knew since the 1960s that burning fossil fuels would warm the planet, but they suppressed that information and spread disinformation instead. And now the lawsuit seeks disgorgement of profits. That is a legal term that means California is not just asking for damages. They are asking Chevron to hand over every dollar they made while allegedly deceiving consumers. Not a fine, not a settlement. Every dollar of profit is theoretically on the table. And how did Chevron respond? Chief Executive Officer Wirth called it one of many such actions filed on behalf of people who have actually profited from and encouraged energy development. In other words, the people suing us are the same people who profited from oil and encouraged us to produce it. You wanted cheap gas, you wanted jobs, you wanted economic growth. You benefited too. So do not pretend to be victims now. But here's where it gets interesting. What would you pay to make a problem disappear? Chevron paid $550 million. In August 2024, the same month Chevron announced the headquarters move, Richmond tried one more squeeze. The city council proposed a new tax on Chevron, $1 per barrel. Now, $1 does not sound like much, but when you are refining 245,000 barrels a day, that $1 adds up to $60 to $90 million per year. The tax was supposed to last for 50 years. Chevron came to California in
So I thought that was an important one there. Only one today.
Critiques of Pam Bondi. I want Pam Bondi to do well. I want her to succeed. I need her to succeed. America needs her to succeed. And hopefully she will continue to work and remember that she works for us and we, the people. But Pam Bondi is facing a lot of backlash because now we're starting to see not only are there people in Washington and people in government that have been misusing and abusing the taxpayers of the United States, but there's also a large group of immigrants in the country that have been misusing and abusing taxpayers of these United States as well. And so people are coming down on her saying, hey, why haven't you guys done anything? Why are these people still here? Why are you guys allowing this? Because all this fraud has come to fruition, or at least come to the surface. First of all, let me say this. I haven't been a Pam Bondi apologist by any means, but I must say, let's be fair about this. This is an issue in Minnesota, having lived through it while living there for all of those years. This has been an issue that's been going on in Minnesota for nearly a decade now. There's been fraud after fraud scheme, and they've kept it under wraps. We know that Tim Walz and previous governors did everything they could to hide it from the American people and from the larger audience, which is those of us that don't necessarily live in Minnesota. Because Minnesota gets a lot of federal tax money. So that means all of our money is being stolen by fraudulent people and fraudulent immigrants in the state of Minnesota. So it's not fair to blame Pam Bondi, someone who's been in office less than a year, for the rampant fraud. Now, we can hold her responsible for anything that has been done or not been done since she's gotten in office, but to clear up over a decade's worth of fraud in less than a year is really unfair for us to question her about. But there are people who are saying now she's on an absolute CYA campaign, but I don't feel that. I don't feel that she is. She came out and she rebuked those that are coming against her right now, and she explained that they are working very, very hard right now with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with local law enforcement, and I have to give her credit. She was mentioned that 98 people in the state of Minnesota have been charged. 85 of them are Somali descent, but more than 60 have already been convicted. Many of them are already in jail. Some of them are now fugitives to Somalia. They have fled the country. So I feel that, hey, she's doing her job. Now, the problem is that there's many of those people who have been given huge fines to pay restitution of hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's be honest, that money's not going to get repaid back. Those people, most of that money has wound up, we now know, in Somalia, whether it be to family members that are over there. A lot of it has gone to Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist organization in Somalia. But there's also a lot of money that's wound up in the Middle East. So I really feel that, like most people, we shouldn't be convicting these people and sentencing them to 20, 25 years in prison. They just need to be deported. If you defrauded the people of the United States, if you stole money from the taxpayers of these United States, there's no sense in housing you in our prisons and feeding you in our prisons and educating you in our prisons. You need to go. You need to be sent back to Somalia or whichever other country that you came here from. And it should be, hey, c'est la vie. So that's the way I feel about it. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Do you guys feel that Pam Bondi is just trying to cover her own rear end and save her own job? Or do you feel that she's genuinely trying to make an effort with these recent indictments and these recent prison sentences that have been and convictions that have been handed out? Comment below. I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, Casper, guess who's on the chair? Who's that? Who's that right there? That's you? Huh? Got his toy. Okay, cast time.
Because the alleged culprit slid through the cracks and was able to gain permanent American residency through a system that's supposed to vet.
Did it again. Hold on.
The suspect got a green card under that program.
So the president has just ended a highly controversial diversity immigration program due to recent events at Brown and MIT that only transpired because the alleged culprit slipped through the cracks and was able to gain permanent American residency through a system that's supposed to vet 20 million diversity applicants on a yearly basis. Something the Trump administration says is 100% impossible.
The Ivy League campus and parts of the Rhode Island capital of Providence were left under lockdown as a desperate manhunt was underway.
But, you know, this is unfortunately not going to be the end, because now you got to do all the investigation. And one of the things you really want to make sure of is that he is the only person you have to worry about.
The Trump administration is pausing the diversity visa program, which it claims allowed the suspect to come to the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced that move on social media. She says she's directing U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services to pause the program to, quote, ensure no more Americans are harmed.
And that's one of the problems with this program is you can't properly vet people. And also it's just a lottery program. So we're not bringing in the people that will benefit us the most. It's a big sea change for the Biden administration. I wouldn't say immigration policy, more like immigration scheme or migration scheme that was only designed to benefit the Democratic Party and also the illegal immigrants. So 50,000 people a year, I think it's overall a good thing to really just scrap this program.
So as the president further secures America's border, some are ludicrously blaming him for recent events. And what nobody's talking about is this is now being used by America's enemies to attack the president and our way of life, while their open borders agenda takes another hit with another failed program that doesn't improve our country ending as proponents say it should. But while troubled politicians are hoping this serves as an adequate distraction from their behavior, critics say the president just wants to use recent events as a pretext for discrimination. Meanwhile, normal people watching this, dealing with an affordability crisis, are wondering why the United States gives out 50,000 green cards a year under this system alone, while wondering how on earth the U.S. government is supposed to find the resources to vet 20 million applicants while securing our southern and northern borders, which are still under threat from the bad guys every single day, while tracking down dangerous individuals already inside America, and while normal immigration processes are supposed to vet and issue around 1 million green cards. And all of this brings us to the real reason this program is now ending. Proponents of ending it say it's impossible to secure. And they also say that the entire U.S. immigration system doesn't just put Americans' safety at risk, but also puts the American dream at risk, because with high levels of normal legal immigration, at a minimum, the American working class, as well as legal immigrants, find themselves under pressure from a system that helps companies pay workers less, as there are only so many available jobs, while these same folks are harmed by artificially induced housing shortages that span coast to coast. But how exactly does this diversity program work? Why is it so controversial? And why do some people still want to keep it?
President Trump's crackdown on immigration has a new target, the diversity visa lottery. Created back in 1990, the diversity visa program allows some people overseas to come here legally to get a green card and legal permanent residency in the U.S. if they come from countries that have low levels of legal immigration to the U.S. Many of those countries are in Africa, for example, and there are 55,000 spots available under this initiative every single year. President Trump has long railed against it, saying that legal immigration to the U.S. should be based on merit.
So it sounds like an unlimited number of people can apply for this lottery system, and the program is capped at giving out around 50,000 green cards per year. The president says it's a total mess, and it kind of is when you think about the core concept here, because who is supposed to benefit from America's immigration system? Random individuals from all across the world, or American citizens and legal immigrants? On top of that, there's an argument that if this program were based on merit and not random chance, and required winners to prove they could support themselves with an economically viable skill or the ability to run a business and create jobs, the country as a whole would have a system that better serves its current and future legal population. But there's more.
Fast forward to this week, when the suspect was identified as a Portuguese national who had been given a diversity visa back in 2017 under the first Trump administration. After that revelation, the Department of Homeland Security said that it would pause all green card cases in the diversity visa category.
So the concerning thing about this program is it's a diversity program, and its only goal is accomplishing diversity. And it sounds like the Brown MIT suspect was a former Brown University student from 25 years ago who used this diversity lottery to re-enter our country and gain permanent residency in 2017. The suspect allegedly had a personal grudge against the late MIT professor who he attended the same university with back in Portugal in the 90s, which suggests this program inadvertently imported a decades-old grudge, which calls into question the vetting behind such a program that was unable to stop a dangerous individual from coming into our country and directly put at risk a legal immigrant who was working here as a professor.
Now, this means that the program has been effectively shut down for the time being. And this is the latest effort by the Trump administration to further escalate its crackdown on immigration.
But if a program is not able to keep the people in the country it's designed to serve safe, why is it open? This is apparently a question the Trump administration was asking in the president's first term when he tried to end this same lottery system. And remember, 20 million people applied for this in the last year. And allegedly, the vetting process isn't what it is for normal legal immigrants. Yes, applicants must prove self-sufficiency, but they don't need a sponsor who is required to conceivably help them if they fall on hard times. And that self-sufficiency proof requires submitting job offers, but the applicant doesn't need to have accepted a position. And you know what? Calling this program a lottery is the perfect name for it because it's a total gamble. The applicants, 20 million people, they have no idea if they're going to win. And it sounds like the US government has no idea how successful those individuals will be once they even get here. So nobody really knows what's going on.
What helps Americans? Is every immigrant either helping us or hurting us? And is our national security and public safety at a risk?
This is what other countries do.
We don't bring them in. And that's one of the problems with this program is you can't properly vet people. And also it's just a lottery program. So we're not bringing in the people that will benefit us the most. It's a big sea change for the Biden administration. I wouldn't say immigration policy, more like immigration scheme or migration scheme that was only designed to benefit the Democratic Party and also the illegal immigrants. So 50,000 people a year, I think it's overall a good thing to really just scrap this program. But it is 50,000 people a year that we know are not coming in unvetted to our country or find out better ways to at least vet them.
Yeah. So we learned over the last 4 years that vetting is something that is nearly impossible. We learned this due to the southern border being wide open, where vetting couldn't really happen. There were many folks that entered the United States and gave whatever information they had orally to the Border Patrol and individuals on the ground there trying to keep the country safe. And they had to be taken at their word because they had no other documentation. The countries that they are from do not necessarily have great records, and in some cases don't even share their records with the United States or just aren't able to. But the other scary thing about this is that we now know that the Brown University suspect was in the United States previously and was given one of these diversity visas, which means there was an opportunity to interact with people who knew this person, to interview them, and to actually do vetting on this individual, which never happened. They knew where he went to college. They could have interviewed the late professor who he had a grudge against because they had a history together, but that never happened. But you've got 20 million people who apply for this program. And yes, computers eliminate everybody who doesn't win, but even to get a group of 50,000 people who qualify for a lottery, you've got to start with around 200,000 people. And then you've got to vet all those people and decide who the winners are going to end up being. We've got to do that while working under the confines of whatever records we're able to obtain from places where folks might be from. And like the host says here, it's not really possible to do a thorough job on every single person. And apparently when it is possible, it doesn't happen because there's not enough time.
Look forward to what the administration's doing. They've announced that they're going to try to strip more foreign-born Americans who have naturalized citizenship of that citizenship. How difficult is it to prove that someone fraudulently obtained American citizenship?
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances. It can be difficult, but one of the things that's interesting, in the code, it says the U.S. attorney shall institute proceedings when there is evidence of fraud. So this isn't something that is an elective. It's something they're required to do, and just because the Biden administration wasn't doing it. But if you look for fraud in an application, if people lied and they're provable lies and those lies were material, they should lose their citizenship. Citizenship shouldn't be cheap, and it should be earned honestly. And if people aren't doing so, it should be stripped.
Okay, that's 100% true. And what some people are saying is that this diversity lottery allowed a dangerous individual, and has allowed more than one dangerous individual, by the way, over the last few years, to get into the United States who shouldn't have come in. And although the United States has an obligation to stop this type of fraud, as we're learning about fraud in places like Minnesota, it is a lot harder to stop it after the fraud has taken place and the money's disappeared. There have been all kinds of schemes and things that have taken place. It's a lot harder to stop fraud after the fact than beforehand. So if you've got a program that can't do its job, that just rigs the deck against law enforcement later, because the program apparently isn't able, just like many immigration programs, to determine which folks have positive aspirations that benefit the country and themselves at the exact same time. Now, does this mean every diversity visa winner is a bad individual? Of course not. There's many great people out there who just don't live in America yet. But this brings us back to the idea that a country's immigration policy isn't about trying to find out who's a great person or not and doesn't live here, but it instead should exist to serve the people in the country that pay taxes to have the system in the first place.
That's going to be an excuse the administration is going to use to throw all sorts of people out of the country.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I think that would be too cumbersome. I think they wouldn't actually be successful because they still have to go through a court system as well. So it has to be a material false statement. So if somebody had a letter or didn't have a proper, had a miss a typo or something. That's not what they're going after. They're going after people that lied, got a benefit from lying, and probably people that are also security threats as well.
And look,
so this is what critics are saying. They're saying that every time the Trump administration shuts down some sort of immigration program, that, oh, this is discrimination. This is the president being a terrible person. This is him enacting some sort of fascist agenda. That's what they always say. But as we just heard, anybody who gets denaturalized, who may have lied or used a program like this as some sort of a backdoor, it's going to have to go through a court system. There's no way to prosecute and go after every single person that's been through a program like this. You're going to have to go after the worst first, which is what the whole idea behind the president's immigration policy is right now. Going after people who are here to commit criminal activity, might be dangerous, slip through the cracks, and then closing all of the cracks, of which apparently this program is one of. But it's also important to consider, why was this program even created? I mean, here we have a program, and its only goal is to accomplish diversity. Why do we have such a program? And has the U.S. immigration system always worked this way?
So during the civil rights era, and this is the simplest way I can put it, there was a thought in effect, if you go back and you can read the transcripts of the debate at the time, of applying civil rights to immigration policy for the globe and to create a civil right for people from every part of the world to come to America in ever-growing numbers. And so a system that for years, as you mentioned, had been tightly restricted, suddenly established this global ability of people in every part of the world to come to America, to bring their families to America, and then eventually empty out their entire towns and their entire villages to the United States of America. And so what you saw between 1965 and today was the single largest experiment on a society, on a civilization that had ever been conducted in human history. Not just the 76 million.
This is wild. And this is something that most of us have probably never thought of. I wasn't alive when things changed, so I don't remember a time before any of this was law. All I know is we've got a system, and this is how it's worked for my entire life. And apparently this diversity visa lottery system is an offshoot of what Stephen Miller just described, a program designed to increase non-merit-based immigration, which is something we're hearing a lot about now. We're hearing about how the country should pursue merit-based immigration and restrict most immigration from the people who are in charge. Also, there are other arguments to merit-based immigration that are now just being talked about for the first time in decades.
There are people all over the world that are great people, but you look at the society. If Libya keeps failing, if the Central African Republic keeps failing, if Somalia keeps failing, right? If these societies all over the world continue to fail, you have to ask yourself, if you bring those societies into our country and then give them unlimited free welfare, what do we think is going to happen? You're going to replicate the conditions that they left.
So this is the argument that the Trump administration is now putting forth about merit-based systems. Now, does this mean that people who do not live in America and might be from a country that has problems have no merit? No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. But if we want to help people who don't live here yet, there are other ways to do it. And there are ways that might actually help their home countries be successful. This can be done through foreign aid. This can be done through helping a nation secure itself if they are facing many different types of conflicts and they don't have a stable government. I'm not saying the United States should go out and do that, but when we look at the cost of domestic immigration programs that might not have the best interest of people who already live here, you've got to wonder, especially when you look at a system like the New York City response to the asylum crisis. New York City was spending $10,000 a month per person to help people live in tents. And when you look at those massive tents that were set up on soccer fields that now kids and local residents could no longer use, you've got to wonder, 10 grand a month, which was just being given out to nonprofits to house people in America temporarily, it could have given 25% of that money to somebody who was struggling in their home country, and they would have been much better off. You know, there are ways to do things and help people that are not as expensive as a sort of system that we've had over the last 4 years, which didn't work out the way the proponents of this system told us it would. But also this idea of merit-based immigration, that is an idea that is actually negative for the host country. Because let's say that the US goes full merit-based immigration. We say, hey, anybody who's smart, anybody who's doing well can just come here from wherever it is they live. Any doctor, any lawyer, any engineer, that's going to drain talent from the rest of the world. Now, let's just say we open up a system like that. Every doctor in Canada is going to immediately come to the United States where they can earn more money. But now there's no doctors in Canada. And now they've got a doctor shortage. Yes, the United States doesn't, but now Canada's worse off. So brain drain isn't a good thing either. That hurts countries. That hurts those local economies. And if you really want to have a more prosperous world in general, there need to be policies that help folks in their home country, help them rebuild their home country. We see a lot of this with earthquake-related aid in places like Haiti, where there is a genuine effort to assist people in rebuilding their nation. And if people empty out the country where they lived, what does that do to the folks who stayed, right? We can't have lottery systems or merit-based systems that are anything other than a zero-sum game. The country that has the merit-based system wins over the country that people are leaving. And if you have a lottery system, there are moments where the country that institutes such a system is not necessarily the beneficiary of that program. But what about the other arguments proponents of an open border or more immigration tell us?
So we had large-scale immigration from Europe from 1880 to 1920. So in other words, we went from a country that had immigration from part of Europe to immigration from many other parts of Europe. But even other European countries pose enormous stresses on the U.S. system, both economically and in terms of security. There's a lot of crime, a lot of threats to public safety and order, and those were addressed with very strict immigration quotas. What they don't teach you in school is that from 1920 to 1970, there was negative migration. There was a half century of negative migration. The foreign-born population declined by 40% for half a century. During that same time period, Will, the U.S. population doubled from natural childbirth.
What do we always hear about immigration in America? The people that want an open border, they always love to tell us, well, since Americans and legal residents don't have the birth rates that they need to grow the economy, we have to have an open border. You see, if you don't like the idea of an open border, realize that it's your fault. That's what we always hear. Politicians that support open borders in one way or another say this constantly, but we just heard that this has not always been the case in America, and that when our immigration systems have been restricted, there have been higher levels of domestic births. But the thinking over the last 30 years or so has been that we need an open border, and we need as much immigration as possible and as much diversity as possible. And we get this thinking from politicians who are aligned with interests which benefit from more immigration, not less. We're talking about companies that want to have more workers to choose from. We're talking about colleges that receive applicants from all across the world and can make more money. Landlords who want to charge higher rents. And the fascinating thing to me is the number one tool most Americans and legal residents have to go out and earn a living and provide for themselves is the demand for their skill set. And you disenfranchise the demand for their skill set once you make these individuals compete for jobs in a workforce with folks who are not supposed to be in the country, or who may have come into the country through fraudulent means, or may have gotten a back door, so to speak, which is what some people are calling this lottery system. All of that together hurts folks who came in and did things the right way, makes their lives less affordable. It's very sad, especially in the case of illegal immigration. And if you shrink the U.S. labor force, everyone here legally gets a pay raise. And you don't have to do this by mandating higher wages at all. You can do it by keeping America safe and having a restrictive system that actually does that and actually does vetting. Once again, we are brought to the conclusion that law enforcement is the answer to America's unaffordability crisis. But what do you think about this diversity program?
Okay, that one wasn't too bad tonight. He wasn't yelling tonight. So I'm going to finish off with George. This is about 10 minutes. Something out of Ohio.
You get public money through Ohio. You get money through the state of Ohio. This is a money that gets.
Ladies and gentlemen, what Ilhan Omar and the Somalis in Minnesota are doing is bad, but what they've been doing in Ohio is outrageous and possibly worse. Because in a lot of ways, what they're doing in Minnesota is unsurprising. For one, it's run by liberals, but you wouldn't expect it in a red state like Ohio. But now citizen journalists are doing what the mainstream media has refused to do for decades: reveal the truth to the public. Nick Shirley led the wave by exposing Minneapolis. And now citizen journalists are converging on Columbus, Ohio, and exposing millions and billions of dollars in Somali-led fraud. And now ICE is surging resources to Columbus, and of course, the Ohio natives welcome it. This lady is going viral for talking about what the Somalis are doing in her hometown.
Come see Columbus, Ohio, fraud investigators. If you go to the government-assisted housing areas, you will find that most of the housing is Somalians. I would say about 80% of the government-assisted housing in Columbus is occupied by Somalians. And the parking lot is occupied with a whole bunch of brand new cars. And the women walking around have designer purses with EBT cards, and they have Apple iPhones stuck up in their hijabs. Yeah. And then go to the businesses that are owned by the men. Because see, what happens is when you have a restaurant or when you have a little corner store and you have a couple of wives and you only have to claim one, then that means the other wives get EBT cards. And you can use those EBT cards to buy food for your store or your restaurant. Yeah. Or what you can do is you can get a home health aid company. And then you only hire Somalians to work the home health aid. And what you do is you just make sure their paperwork looks right. It don't have to be right, but you just make sure it looks right. And then you send them off for those home health aid jobs. Y'all don't want to talk about fraud.
This is pretty depressing to hear. What are the Republicans in Ohio doing, man? Here come the exposures. Somalis in Ohio have been exposed running an EBT fraud ring by owning restaurants with attached grocery stores, using welfare benefits to buy ingredients in bulk. That lady wasn't lying at all.
Oh, yeah. The Somalians have it figured out in Columbus. I went to the Walmart on Georgesville to see if I could see people filling their carts or just kind of see what I could see. It's not the way they do it. They've got it figured out way better than that. Every single Somali restaurant has a grocery store right next door or within eye shot of the restaurant. The specific one I went into today had it attached to the restaurant. And wow, what an adventure that was. Stay tuned for more on that. Anyways, the grocery store and the restaurant were the same building. So they don't have to go to a Walmart or a Sam's Club or a Costco necessarily. They can just order everything they need to their grocery store that's right next to or attached to the restaurant that they also own and never have to fill a single cart. And I guarantee you, if you looked at the records of those grocery stores, they lose tons of money every year, and it's probably used as a tax write-off because those groceries are being funneled into those restaurants, with a daycare center on the opposite side. And that's the common trend you'll see. There's restaurants, grocery stores, and daycare centers, and also home health care businesses. I can't forget the home health care businesses. Nakia was absolutely right. And the reason for the daycare centers, I found out while I was at Walmart. 3/4 of the workers I saw working in Walmart, especially the cashiers, were Somali women. You got to figure if you have 2 or 3 wives that you don't have to claim, these women can go work at Walmart full time for $15 an hour and still qualify for food stamps as long as they have a couple kids, which you can guarantee you they at least have 2 kids.
Oh, this is so infuriating. My brother is working on opening a home health care business here in Colorado. He has had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get all the licenses, and he's going to be putting more money into advertising. And it's crazy just seeing how the Somalians, instead of doing the hard work, who just defraud the government and the taxpayers. How many Americans are struggling to make ends meet? Typically, restaurants support the farming and trucking industries, farmers that produce the food, and truckers or delivery vehicles that bring it to the restaurants. But if they're doing this, they are adding absolutely no value to the economy. Whatever profits they make from stealing taxpayer money doesn't even stay in the United States. It ends up in Somalia building real estate. You guys think I'm kidding? I see articles like this every day. Somalia's capital, Mogadishbag, gets a fresh start. After decades of war, it's experiencing a remarkable construction boom. They're building homes faster than tower groups can blow them up.
And Columbus doesn't break down its numbers like Minnesota. But if anything like the 88% of the Somali community is on social services in Columbus, I can only imagine how deep the fraud is.
Here's another one for you.
Today I'm showing you 161 Childcare in Columbus, Ohio. As you can see, it does not look like a childcare center at all. It is locked. It says it's open. There's a little desk right there, but the ceiling's all falling out and stuff like that. And if you come around back, you can see that this place is just a total dump. Literal just debris everywhere. This is a question. How do you enroll? How do you enroll your children here? You can't do that? No kids? So how can I enroll my children? It says you get public money through. You get public money through Ohio. You get money through the state of Ohio. This is a money that gets.
I can't say it's unbelievable because it's happening, right? Even the lawyers are saying Ohio is now a hotbed for Somali fraud. Here is Mahek Cook. Then I'm going to tell you some of the massive action being taken by officials at the federal level as well as the state level.
So these individuals tried to report the fraud that was happening in Ohio and then eventually came to me to say that we're watching providers rubber stamp paperwork for home health. So in Ohio, and there's many states like this, Pennsylvania and other states too, where you can go in and you can say my aging parent needs a home health care and I want to provide it. So the state will, as long as a doctor has approved it, continue to pay you. It could be for 10 hours, 12 hours, up to 24 when it's critical care. So you could sit at home without caring for an elderly parent who really doesn't need it, make about $75,000 to $90,000 a year. Now you add two parents, that's $180,000. Now you add your in-laws, $250,000. You continue to add this and you wonder, what are the services being provided? So a lot of providers came and said, fraud is occurring because we said we weren't going to rubber stamp this paperwork. So they went to other providers. Their home healthcare network saying, we'll make it worth your while. Well, sounds like a kickback to me. So we really need to investigate the Medicaid system and how much it's increased since the Somalian population came and who really needs critical care, because that's meant for our disabled, our elderly, and people who really need it, not to just live off our system. And that's what's happening in Ohio. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's despicable, but authorities are now looking at it from the Attorney General's office to the U.S. Attorney's office. I flagged them all because this is Ohio tax dollars and we have to take it seriously. I'm tired of people telling me, well, this is the way it's always been. It's subjective and we can't really check. No, you can. Audit America, audit Ohio now. And I'm pushing for that in every single state.
That's good to hear. So everyone's asking what's being done about it. Well, Republican Ohio State Representative Josh Williams is now seeking a full-blown investigation into the fraud. He says we need round-the-clock, unannounced inspections of all childcare facilities receiving public dollars to make sure not a single Ohioan's tax dollars are being stolen. What's happening in Minnesota is almost certainly occurring in Columbus, and Ohio needs to use every power we have under the law to put a stop to it. ICE has also announced they are shifting resources to the Somali hotbeds, and they are going to be carrying out raids in Minneapolis as well as Columbus, Ohio. And of course, the FBI and Department of Justice will certainly have eyes on this. It's really disturbing how this has been going on for years, ever since they started landing in the United States in the late 90s and early 2000s and started breeding like turtles. It's a culture thing. They don't have any respect for the country. They think the country is just an economic zone that they can steal from, that the country's taxpayers won't mind. And if they do mind, they don't care about that. It's just about sucking as much money as possible from the American system. And if this was only happening with the Somalis in America, then we could say, okay, it's a problem with the system, not the people that are using it and abusing it. But it's happening with Somalis in Norway. It's happening with Somalis in the UK. It's happening with Somalis in Sweden, even in other East African countries. The Kenyans, the Ethiopians, they all complain about the same things. That means it's a cultural problem. Somalis also don't bother to criticize their own. So if a fellow Somalian is committing crimes, then they must be protected by the community. They also have lobbying groups for themselves now. Similar to how Israel has AIPAC, we're probably going to have Somali PAC. And this is the problem with having a diaspora population that care more about their country of origin than the country that they live in, because they're going to be pushing the country of residence, in this instance, the United States, to care about Somalia. And they're going to suck money out of here, stealing it and sending it back to mega douchebag to build real estate. It's unacceptable. We need mass arrest, mass denaturalizations, mass deportations, and it has to be done fast. And by the way, I'm normally a believer that we already have all the laws necessary to stop this kind of stuff. But the way it's going on in Ohio and Minnesota, they are making up new ways of doing crime, using food stamps to buy food to stock their grocery stores that run a loss, because the grocery stores supply the restaurant next to it. Meanwhile, the daycare center has no kids, but a bunch of Somalians back there counting cash, probably, right? That's all they're doing all day. So yeah, we're going to need some new federal laws that are very specific to this kind of scheme, because it's really bad for the market. We need to get to the bottom of this, because this is embarrassing for America. Thank you all very much for watching. God bless. And
okay, sorry I couldn't get to more Doug videos. George had some good ones today. That put us right over 2 hours here. 7:04 or is that 7:01? All right. So yeah, tomorrow we'll just try to get an hour at least, and then see how things go tomorrow night for New Year's Eve. Can't believe it's New Year's Eve tomorrow. So thanks, Kay. Shell had a doctor checkup, I think. Hope everything was okay with her. So, God bless everybody. Love all. Remember, please hit the like and stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith, and never give up. And signing off, Chico and Dude. Till tomorrow evening at around 4:35. If anything happens, I'll be on. See you all tomorrow, you guys. Another night of intel.